You've emerged victorious while I've suffered defeat. You walk away with property, money, and an upgraded partner. The hotel room is yours tonight, along with the arrangements I've made. Please don't return the gift. It would only remind you of your deceit. I'm driving home and have no desire to see you, him, or your associates again. Let me know when your team will collect your belongings. Anything unnecessary will be packed away, symbolizing the mess of our marriage. To quote my father in the Air Force, "Yay for me and screw you. I'm done serving you. Enjoy your journey. Your acting skills have earned it." 10 years later, on a Wednesday morning, I awoke to banging. Rubbing sleep from my eyes, I checked the clock. 8:15 a.m. The noise persisted now at my front door. Who would knock at this hour? I slipped into my robe and slippers, heading downstairs where the knocking grew louder. Peering through the peephole, I saw a disheveled woman. Opening the door, prepared to scold her, I recognized her. Older, thinner, her once vibrant hair now tinged with gray. She smelled, her dress worn. She resembled homeless Daisy, who often lurked in the streets or underpasses. In disbelief, I questioned the woman who had once been my wife. "Yes, Mike, it's me. Can I come inside?" she pleaded desperately. "By the way, that's me, Mike Carpenter." "No," I replied, slamming the door in her face. Just then, another knock echoed, accompanied by her sobs. "Please, Mike, I'm begging you, open the door." I flung the door open to prevent further pounding, but remained in the doorway to block her entry. The neighbors already viewed me as peculiar. I didn't want to attract more attention by making a scene on the doorstep. "What do you want? I made it clear 10 years ago that I never want to see you again. Never. What part of that didn't you understand? And why are you here? I thought you and Dr. Wonderful were living in Milwaukee." Regaining composure, Daisy wiped her tears and cast me the most longing glance I'd ever witnessed. "Can I come in? I'm hungry, tired, and need to use the restroom. Please, I'll explain later," she implored, her feet shifting uneasily. With my experience as a teacher, I recognized the telltale signs of imminent urgency. I didn't want her relieving herself on my porch, so I reluctantly swung the door open, gesturing her inside with a silent invitation. "You remember where the bathroom is?" I scolded, a reminder that we once shared this home. "Hurry up." "Thanks," Daisy said, entering. She dropped her suitcase and dashed to the downstairs bathroom. I closed the door, went upstairs for a quick bathroom break, and returned downstairs. Finding her still in the bathroom, I went to the kitchen, fired up my Keurig, and brewed coffee. By then, Daisy had returned. "Can I have a cup?" she pleaded. I paused, torn between anger and restraint. I couldn't slap a woman, and I didn't want trouble. "Yeah, I'm not heartless," I replied, "but I'm not your servant either." So I relented, partly out of curiosity. "I don't have fancy stuff," I said, offering milk and sugar. "Black's fine," Daisy said gratefully. I handed her the cup, watching her trembling hands. "Why are you here?" I asked. "I've got nowhere else to go," she finally admitted. "I used up my last dime on cab fare." "What happened to your beloved Dr. Bruce?" I quipped sarcastically. "Dr. Bruce. It fell apart," she stuttered, avoiding my gaze. If my sarcasm had been any sharper, you could have sliced tile with it. I noticed her flinch. "After the divorce, we tied the knot, but things soured when Bruce faced a massive medical malpractice lawsuit. Both of us lost our jobs and medical licenses, and we ended up losing everything. Bruce became abusive, blaming me for our situation. One day, I caught him cheating," Daisy tearfully recounted. "So he got a taste of his own medicine," I remarked wryly, remembering our own past drama. "But karma's a kicker." "Not funny," Daisy whimpered. "Just like it wasn't funny when you publicly tore me apart on our anniversary," I reminded her. "Do you realize it's the 10th anniversary of that night?" "No, I didn't know," Daisy murmured. "Did you report him to the cops?" I asked, showing some compassion. "No, too scared. But I did divorce him. Unfortunately, I was left with next to nothing after the split," Daisy explained. "Haven't eaten in 2 days." "What's your play here?" I questioned. "Sympathy. You might find it in the dictionary between crap and chlamydia," Daisy retorted bitterly. "I despise you. I loathe you as intensely as I once adored you," I snarled. "Now that your world's crumbling, you come crawling back to me? Where are your parents and friends now?" "They've all abandoned me," Daisy sobbed. "No surprises there," I scoffed bitterly. "Did you and the idiot have kids?" "No, never did. Turns out Bruce is infertile for some reason. He blames me for that too," she spat bitterly. "At least the gene pool's safe from you two," I remarked wryly. "Guess something good came from that mess." She wrinkled her nose at me. "What happened to you, Mike?" You used to be so caring, so kind." Anger morphed into fury, and I squeezed my eyes shut. "You want to know what happened? Look in the mirror. You happened. Thanks to you, I'm incapable of love and trust." "The nice guy finished last," I growled. "But I thought you'd move on. Find someone else," Daisy wheezed, wide-eyed. "Get real. After what you did, you never once hinted I was just a fallback for you. I thought we had something solid, but you lied. 13 damn years, 10 as husband and wife. Do you think I can trust anyone after that?" I took a deep breath. "And how many women do you think would want damaged goods? Not that there was a line," I muttered to myself. Still, not a single one came along. "So, are you surprised I've turned into a recluse after a decade licking my wounds?" "I suppose not," Daisy admitted sheepishly, lowering her gaze. "And here you are. What do you want from me? Shelter? Care while you wait for Prince Charming to stroll back in?" "I hoped you'd let me stay just until I get back on my feet," she pleaded. "There's a shelter downtown," I pointed out. "That's what they're for. That's where my taxes go, to keep people like you off the streets." "I tried, but they were full," Daisy confessed. "Even the WCA and the big church downtown had no room." "Please, Mike, I'm begging you. I'll do anything. Cook, clean, whatever you need." I wanted to lash out, but I held back, glaring at her. She visibly recoiled. "What makes you think I'd want you near me? To me, you're contaminated, a walking hazard," I hissed. And then it dawned on me. "You've been attempting to sell yourself," I remarked. She lowered her head shyly, tears dripping onto the table as she nodded. "How do I appear? No takers?" she questioned. I studied her closely before replying. "Oh, how mighty have fallen. Perhaps I should depart. Perhaps I should simply fade away and perish in some alley," Daisy cried. "No one desires me anyhow." I watched her sobbing at the kitchen table, feeling a mix of anger and pity. Despite my strong hatred for her, seeing her like this after all these years was jarring. And then there was Bruce, the dirtbag who had taken her from me to mistreat her. My contempt for him was growing. Raised never to use violence against women, I struggled with conflicting emotions. Taking a reluctant breath, I suggested we eat first. Daisy agreed, expressing her hunger. I prepared scrambled eggs and bacon, recalling how Daisy used to make them. Her eyes lit up when I served her, grateful for the cheese on the eggs. As she ate voraciously, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. When she finished, she thanked me for the meal and praised my cooking. She declined more food, but asked for another cup of coffee. "Sure," I replied, taking her cup. When I returned, she sipped her coffee and seemed to feel better. "A little. The food helped," she admitted. "Good. A shower might help more," I suggested bluntly. "No offense, but you stink." Daisy's face fell. "I'm sorry, can I use your shower, please?" "You know where it is," I said. "Towels are where they always are. My robe will be on the door. Don't put it back on after your shower. You can use the washer and dryer for your clothes." As she disappeared into the bathroom, I grumbled about cleaning. Then I washed dishes, went upstairs to get ready, reflecting on Daisy's departure with Bruce, the betrayal that devastated me. Counseling helped, and I poured my feelings into writing, eventually publishing a book about my experience, bringing some closure. Another factor in maintaining my sanity was my involvement in martial arts. Initially, 2 senseis urged me to quit due to my intensity during sparring. However, I found guidance from a retired Marine at the community center. Unlike others, he remained composed during our sessions, teaching me to channel my emotions into controlled strikes rather than letting them dictate my actions. It was a challenging skill to master, as evidenced by the bruises I accumulated. Meeting Daisy again took me by surprise, especially seeing her health decline. I wondered if she was sick. Oddly, my anger shifted toward Bruce. Even though I initially wanted to push Daisy away, I hesitated. What if something happened to her? Could I handle the aftermath? The idea of worsening my emotional state and facing potential legal issues wasn't appealing. I decided to get another perspective and called my mom. "Morning, Mike," she greeted cheerfully. "What's on your mind?" Skipping the usual chit-chat, I blurted out, "Guess who showed up this morning?" "Now you've got me curious." "Who?" she asked. "Daisy," I confessed. I heard her sigh. "What's the deal? What does she want?" she probed. I recounted Daisy's situation and what she told me. "Mom, she looks awful. My gut says I should kick her out." "But you'd regret it if something happened to her," Mom predicted, echoing my worry. "Yeah, you're probably right. Plus, she treated Bruce terribly," I added. "I know she hurt you deeply," Mom acknowledged. But maybe hearing her out is the wise move. How about I come over later? Knowing Mom's talent for unraveling things, I agreed. Sounds good, Mom. Your input would be invaluable. Let me handle it for now, and I'll see you soon. Thanks, Mom. I really appreciate it, I expressed gratefully. We wrapped up our chat, and I tended to my chores. Slipping into my usual summer gear of a tee and jeans, I went downstairs. Daisy had already started laundry, wearing my old robe and slippers as she waited for me in the living room. I didn't bother to check if she had anything on underneath. The robe was tightly tied, showing dark stains on her legs. Though she smelled better, she didn't look any better. Want a coffee refill? I offered. Yes, please, she accepted. Pouring another cup, I joined her. As she sipped, her shaky hands caught my eye. Thanks, she mumbled. I'll leave once my clothes are done, she added. No hurry, I assured her. I do have some questions, if you don't mind, I continued. Sure, Daisy agreed. Bruce faced malpractice claims. Weren't doctors like him insured? I asked. They were, but it turned into a class action. Even though most claims were baseless, the insurance refused coverage due to many judgments against him, Daisy clarified. Some claims were proven true, I probed. The unproven ones were dismissed due to lack of evidence, she explained. But the damage was done. We lost our jobs and licenses. Didn't you have 401ks? I questioned, surprised. Yes, we did. We lived off them for a year, paying hefty penalties. But we lost everything, Daisy lamented. What's Bruce doing now? I chuckled, recalling his earlier dreams. He works as a parking attendant, making about $16 an hour, she revealed. And your plans? I redirected. I thought about office work in the medical field. Despite losing my nursing license, I'm hopeful, Daisy replied quietly. Best of luck, I offered. Transportation and housing? I pressed. I can take the bus or walk, she sighed. I'll figure something out, but it takes money, she acknowledged. And you don't have any, I noted. Expected me to support you until you bounced back, huh? I took a gamble with the question. Yes, Daisy admitted. I get I'm not owed anything, but I hoped, given what I sacrificed in the divorce, you might show some kindness. My infatuation blinded me to your struggles. Now I see assuming was a mistake. You're right. I don't owe you, I affirmed. She seemed defeated, but I sighed and added, but I'm not heartless. You clearly need help. My mom's on her way. She wants to talk before I decide. Of course, Daisy replied, visibly relieved. Your mom's always meant a lot to me, and she adored you, I noted. Then, unexpectedly, she said, despite it all, Mom still cared for you. Cared? Daisy asked, surprised. Yes, so you need to be brutally honest with her, understand? I do, and I promise honesty, Daisy assured. And Mike? What? I asked. Thank you genuinely for everything, Daisy expressed. Hold off on the thanks, I cautioned. Just then, the doorbell rang. I peeked through the peephole, seeing my mom, so I greeted her with a hug as I let her in. Daisy, goodness, has it really been 10 years? My mom exclaimed, spotting Daisy in my old robe. Both women hugged and exchanged kisses. It's nice to see you again, Lorraine, Daisy replied. Mike, dear, why don't you give us some girl time? My mom suggested. Knowing she wanted privacy, I headed to my home office, closing the door. I surfed the web, looking into the malpractice lawsuit against Dr. Bruce Williams. After some searching, I stumbled upon troubling information. Bruce had reportedly diagnosed around 97% of his 2,000 patients with epilepsy over 4 years. However, many children were misdiagnosed or overmedicated, leading to unnecessary treatments and procedures. Daisy was often implicated as an accomplice. The hospital had to refund $300,000 for improper billing, prompting their termination and license revocation. Reading this, I was appalled. Bruce seemed to be the ringleader, with Daisy following his lead. My mother interrupted, expressing concern about Daisy's health and suggesting a visit to Dr. McGregor. Her grave tone weighed heavily on me. Terry McGregor had been our family doctor for years, and Mom had worked for him until retiring recently. Why? Mom pondered. I can't diagnose, but I've seen many cancer cases in women. I'd bet she needs urgent medical attention. But she didn't stop there. I know Daisy has strained your bond, and I understand, Mom admitted. But if she's dealing with health issues, we should help. It's the right thing. She gave me a small, lopsided smile. I never said being a Christian was easy, did I? Plus, Michael James Carpenter, your father and I didn't raise you to be cold-hearted, did we? I wrinkled my nose, returning her smile, and shook my head. So she went on. I called Dr. McGregor. He'll see her today and run tests. If they find anything, they'll refer her to a specialist and assist with Medicaid. She'll change, and I'll drive her, Mom decided. You can't afford that, I objected. Here, take this. I handed her $200 bills. Thanks, Mike. You're a good son, she acknowledged. Just so we're clear, I'm not doing this for her. I'm doing it because of the values you taught me. That doesn't mean I forgive her or take her back, I asserted firmly. Got it, Mom replied quietly. An awkward silence hung in the air. Did she mention that idiot Bruce assaulted her? I finally asked. Yes, she did, Mom confirmed, her face neutral, her voice steady. I nodded briskly. That scoundrel needs consequences, I thought. Another tense silence followed. Keep me updated, I instructed. I will, Mom assured, kissing my forehead before leaving. Exiting my office, I saw Daisy in a different outfit, still worn but clean. Thanks for breakfast, she murmured timidly. You're welcome, I replied stiffly. After they left, I locked up and grabbed more coffee, researching Wisconsin's laws on spousal misuse. Sadly, I found the time limit for prosecution was discouraging. Unsure of when Bruce attacked Daisy, I doubted the authorities could act. Feeling frustrated, I briefly considered taking matters into my own hands. To clear my head, I changed and rode my stationary bike, pushing myself through a tough workout. Over the years, I had gone from unfit to fit, sticking to a regular exercise routine. Afterward, feeling refreshed, I showered, dressed, and had a light lunch while catching up on the news. By the time I listened to Mom's message, it was mid-afternoon. Was wondering where you guys were, I said as I answered the phone. Just finished with Dr. McGregor, Mom replied wearily. Judging by her tone, Daisy wasn't nearby. Any updates? I asked. McGregor's concerned about Daisy. Test results suggest cervical cancer. He's arranged an appointment with an oncologist for Friday. She's applied for Medicaid and emergency aid. McGregor also suspects physical misuse, Mom disclosed. We're aware, I acknowledged. She mentioned not eating, Mom continued, her concern evident. But McGregor thinks it's more severe, lacking essential nutrients. Seeing her worry, I nodded. It's late. I'll take her for a meal, grab essentials and her suitcase. She should stay with me. We need to talk, Mom suggested. Sounds like a plan, I agreed. Keep me posted. Love you, Mom said. Love you too, I replied. About 3 hours later, they were on their way. We settled in the study while Daisy packed. Sorry for the delay, Mom began. No worries, I said. What's the plan? Caring for Daisy till her appointment. She still cares for you, wanted you to know, Mom explained. No reconciliation. Not after her lies and infidelity, I said firmly. Understood, Mom replied. She thinks she can win you back, Mom revealed. Out of the question, I asserted. Besides, I've changed. I miss the old you, Mom admitted. Can you join us for dinner on Friday? She asked. I'll make lasagna. Absolutely, I agreed. Your lasagna always brings a smile. We hugged and returned to the front room where Daisy was waiting with her suitcase. I'll stay with your mom if that's okay, she said weakly. That's up to her, I replied, noticing my mom's expression. Thanks for breakfast and for listening, Daisy said tearfully. You're welcome, I nodded. Don't forget about dinner on Friday, my mom reminded unnecessarily. I'll be there, I promise, I assured her. Over the next 2 days, I kept busy with work and household chores. With school out for summer, I had to tackle curriculum planning and home maintenance. I trusted my mom to take care of Daisy, knowing her resourcefulness in navigating challenges. Finally, Friday arrived. After a shower, I picked up wine and headed to my mom's for lasagna. Arriving at 6:15, Daisy greeted me and led me inside. Mom was busy in the kitchen, and Daisy appeared on the verge of tears. I thanked Daisy as I entered the kitchen, and Mom's face lit up at the sight of the wine. We sat down to enjoy the meal, though Daisy seemed visibly distressed. How did things go today? I finally inquired. We managed to get Daisy's application approved, Mom reported. Thank goodness for this newfangled internet system. I wish they'd had it when I retired. Observing her forced optimism, I sought reassurance. So Daisy's medical costs will be covered? Yes, and she'll get a monthly allowance from the state. Since she'll be living here, she won't need much, Mom confirmed. They're pursuing child support, but it's like squeezing blood from a turnip, I muttered grimly. That's good, I replied. And the oncologist? Daisy's expression darkened, signaling ominous news. They found stage 4 cervical cancer, Mom disclosed. It's spreading rapidly throughout her body. Can it be treated? I asked, grappling with mixed emotions. Maybe, Mom responded cautiously. With Daisy's consent, she continued. Survival odds are less than 20%. Treatment's an option, but no guarantees, Mom explained. Doctors think it started about 4 years ago, Daisy admitted tearfully. If caught earlier, my chances would have been over 90%. That's terrible. Bruce didn't notice anything? I probed. No, he never mentioned it, Daisy explained. I noticed some changes, but I didn't want to worry him. What kind of changes? I asked delicately. Closeness became painful, Daisy confessed. We stopped altogether for a while. Redirecting the conversation, I said, new medications might help, as Mom added. They could improve her odds by 10 or 15%. What's your plan? I asked Daisy. Fight. I'm not ready to give up, she declared. And how long will treatment last? I questioned Mom. Up to a year, maybe longer, she replied. Will Daisy stay here? I pressed. I think it's best. I'll care for her, Mom assured. Reluctantly, I agreed. I suppose that makes sense. Can you handle this? Mom asked. I glanced at Daisy, recalling our history. Memories flooded back of her callous actions with Bruce. Daisy noticed my change in demeanor. I know you don't trust me, but... she started. Understatement, I sharply interjected. If you injure my mother or cause trouble, I'll kick you out, cancer or not, understand? Yes, Daisy replied quietly, tears welling. Mom intervened, suggesting dessert. I can help, I offered, but Mom declined. You two could use some time alone, she said, leaving. Daisy wiped her face. I started reading your book, she said. I was that terrible. I have footage from that night, I revealed. Would you like to see it? Daisy declined, stunned. No wonder you despise me, she said, sobbing. It's all in the book, I continued. I imagined revenge for years. Daisy was horrified. Yolanda suggested exercise, Mom added, bringing apple pie. That's why you look so good now? Daisy asked. Yes, I confirmed. I've been doing martial arts and fitness. But you're still angry, Daisy observed. It's better, Mom reassured. 2 years ago, you wouldn't have even come through the door. I'm truly sorry, Mike. I really am. I knew it would hurt, but I didn't anticipate it would devastate you like this. That's why I gave you everything in the divorce. I thought it would aid in your recovery. When you didn't contest it, I assumed you'd be all right, Daisy explained. To be honest, my lawyer was taken aback when he saw your petition. He urged me to sign it swiftly, fearing you might reconsider, I confessed. Have you dated anyone since then? Daisy asked tentatively. Not really, I replied bluntly. Just a couple of drunken one-night stands, but that's about it. I don't even recall their names. I noticed my mother's eyebrows shoot up, a look of disgust crossing her face, but she held back her thoughts. At that moment, I didn't care about her reaction. Oh, God, Daisy sighed. I don't know what to say. A sorry won't be enough, will it? No, I replied bitterly. We ate pie in silence, Daisy's hurt evident, and I avoided looking at Mom's face. After saying goodbye, Mom walked me to the door, where I spoke quietly. Are you sure you're doing the right thing, Mom? I asked. What about her family? Can't they help? I called her parents and sister, but they refused to help, Mom replied sadly. What a screwed-up family, I muttered. You didn't abandon me, I told Mom, despite turning bitter. Family takes care of family. I agree, Mom said tearfully. What are Daisy's chances, really? I asked. Mom looked at Daisy before answering. It's hard to say. Progress has been made in treatment, but it's uncertain. A lot depends on her will to live. Ignoring that, I expressed concern for my mom's well-being. What if she does something behind your back? I worried. I know you don't trust her, but she's at rock bottom right now. People with nothing have nothing to lose, I reasoned. Be careful. If you need anything, let me know, I urged. I will, Mom promised. Thanks for dinner. I'll be in touch. Love you, I said. Love you too, son, Mom replied, kissing my cheek. Please try to keep your emotions in check, Mom requested. Don't push her further, she pleaded. I'll try, I sighed heavily. That's all I ask, Mom said, and I promise not to play matchmaker. Thank you, I smiled before leaving. The next 2 months flew by as I tackled home projects and prepared for the upcoming school year. On Fridays, I visited my mom's house for dinner. I witnessed Daisy's chemotherapy taking a toll, weakening her. Despite the treatment's intent to heal, it seemed ineffective in her case. By mid-August, she lost all her hair, donning a stylish chemo cap. While my feelings for her remained unchanged, I made an effort to be polite, mainly for my mom's peace of mind. Daisy began receiving deductions from Bruce's paycheck, albeit small. She opened a bank account, with Mom overseeing the funds. Daisy insisted on sharing with Mom for expenses. Mom agreed, setting aside 10% for emergencies. On the eve of the new school year, I arrived at Mom's house to find an unfamiliar car parked outside. The sight of Bruce triggered an unsettling feeling. Mom and Daisy seemed apprehensive. Bruce appeared disheveled, a stark contrast to his former self. The restrained part of my mind reacted with restrained aggression, observing Bruce's decline. He lacked his previous commanding presence, appearing unkempt in dirty jeans and a shirt. "Well, look who it is, the arrogant teacher," Bruce sneered arrogantly. My animosity towards him had peaked. Though I'd never been in a physical altercation before, my martial arts training had taught me to avoid fights whenever possible. Even if you emerge victorious, the repercussions can linger for a lifetime. "What's your business here, Bruce?" I asked icily. "I want the money that woman took from me," he growled. "Took? I thought the court mandated a portion of your income for alimony," I stated evenly, though my gaze probably conveyed my disdain. "It's all the same. They seized my funds and now I'm facing eviction because I can't pay rent," Bruce hissed. "Thanks to her, you had the money to travel here from Milwaukee," I pointed out. "You could have used it for rent." "Don't play games, teacher. Maybe I should have taught you a lesson 10 years ago." She stopped me, insisted I treat you with respect for looking after her all those years, Bruce threatened. "How about you leave and we pretend none of this happened?" I suggested cautiously, raising my hands in an attempt to diffuse the situation that could lead to a violent confrontation, leaving me with bruises and a few well-timed counterattacks. But he likely didn't know Daisy's condition. She was ill, battling cancer, and she needed support. "Cancer, huh? Is that another one of her lies?" Bruce scoffed, placing his soda and sandwich aside before producing a revolver from behind him. "Funny, I happen to have the cure for that," he taunted, aiming the weapon at Daisy. "Bruce, please," my mom pleaded, gesturing towards her phone on the table. The emergency operator likely heard our entire exchange. "Please, I've already called the police. They're on their way." I began to position myself between Bruce and Daisy, but he swiftly directed the weapon towards me, desperation evident in his eyes. Mentally, I retreated. I hadn't come this far, survived this much, to be senselessly shot by a cop. "Stay put, teacher. Not one move," Bruce warned, his hands trembling. In that instant, we spotted flashing red and blue lights outside the front windows and heard a voice over the intercom. "Mr. Williams, this is the police. The house is surrounded. We're aware you're armed. Drop your weapon and come out with your hands up," the officer instructed. "You should listen," I warned Bruce, who stared wide-eyed. "How did they know about my weapon?" Bruce inquired. "I informed them I saw it tucked in your waistband," Mom disclosed. "And Mike's right. Follow their orders. This is your final chance, Mr. Williams. Surrender the weapon and exit the premises," the officer commanded through the speaker. Glancing at us, Bruce seemed to grow increasingly uneasy. Our eyes met briefly and I noticed his resolve waver. "If you were wise, you'd comply," I advised. "There won't be another warning." As the back door opened, 2 officers suddenly appeared in the room, pistols drawn, aimed at Bruce. "Drop your weapons," one ordered. Bruce turned, eyes widening as he realized he was facing 2 loaded weapons. Recklessly, he raised his firearm, but the officers fired first. Amidst the ringing in my ears, Daisy's scream pierced through, shocking me. 2 more officers entered the room as my mom reacted, clutching an heirloom. Frozen, I watched as officers attended to Daisy and my wounded mom, while 2 others knelt beside Bruce. One officer confirmed Bruce's pass away, leaving me shaken. Despite feeling a mix of relief and resentment, I steadied my mom. Paramedics arrived, determining Bruce's fate and attending to Daisy. I offered to accompany my mom to the hospital. At the crime scene, detectives took our statements and advised us to leave. They assured us of securing the house and provided a cleaning service recommendation. Driving to the hospital, my mind spun with conflicting emotions. At the hospital, we navigated bureaucracy, eventually settling in the waiting area for Daisy's surgery. Finally, the doors parted and a doctor approached us. "Mrs. Carpenter?" he inquired. "Yes, that's me," Mom confirmed. "How's Daisy?" "Miss Williams is stable and improving. I anticipate she'll pull through the fire shot wound. Fortunately, the bullet passed through without hitting any critical organs." "She's fortunate," the doctor informed. "Just a tad to the left, and it could have been fatal." "Thank the Lord," Mom breathed a sigh of relief. "She's lost considerable blood, and her compromised state due to cancer and chemotherapy isn't in her favor. However, we've detected something else and informed her oncologist," the doctor disclosed. "Oh, what's that?" Mom inquired. "I'm aware she's undergoing chemotherapy, but we've detected what seems to be signs of infection in her system. I've ordered a battery of tests as a precaution, he explained. Oh dear, Mom sighed. Will she be all right? It's too early to say. She's currently sedated. We'll need to keep her here for a minimum of 3 days. May we visit her? Mom requested. I'm afraid not, perhaps tomorrow morning at the earliest. Let me provide you with a card. You can reach this number anytime for updates and to learn her room assignment, he said, handing Mom the card. We drove back to Mom's house in silence, with her crying most of the way. My thoughts were consumed by the surreal situation. Daisy, whom I once harbored dark fantasies about, now fighting for her life in the hospital. Despite feeling a pang of remorse, I pushed the thoughts aside. Arriving home, I noticed the crime scene tape discarded in the trash and a note from the detective declaring the scene cleared. Mom wasted no time in cleaning up while I disposed of the chair Daisy had been shot in. Upon my return, I found Mom on her knees, tears mixing with the blood as she scrubbed the floor. Offering help, she declined, determined to manage alone. I suggested she stay at my place, but she insisted on staying. Respecting her decision, I resolved to stay with her. Despite her protestations, I offered to cook dinner before we turned in. Sharing a knowing look, we agreed a glass of wine would be a fitting end to a tumultuous day. As she resumed cleaning, her movements became more frantic. Concerned about potential nightmares, we found solace in a glass of wine or sheer exhaustion, sleeping deeply until morning. We moved through the house quietly until the phone interrupted our somber atmosphere around 10 o'clock. I retreated to the kitchen to give her privacy, and when she joined me minutes later, she relayed Daisy's condition, serious but stable, undergoing tests with an expected return to her room by mid-afternoon. Lost in thought, I barely registered any emotions. She interrupted my introspection, requesting a ride to the hospital at 2:30. I agreed, departing early to handle errands before meeting her at her house and proceeding to the hospital. After purchasing gifts for Daisy, including her favorite flowers and a book, Mom teased me playfully at the register, prompting me to defensively brush off any deeper sentiment. But her words lingered, reminding me that feelings, even complex ones, were valid. Afterward, we headed to Daisy's room. Though awake, she appeared drained. Mom planted a kiss on her cheek and passed her the purchased card. Her eyes sparkled when she noticed the flowers. My favorites! You remembered? She exclaimed, surprised. Her voice, though weak, held a pleasant tone. Yes, I responded, extending the novel. If I recall correctly, you were reading it when you left with Bruce, I added, my voice devoid of emotion, though a slight pang hit my gut. Yes, I did read it, but never got to finish. Thank you, she murmured softly, not meeting my gaze as she thumbed through the paperback. Any updates? Mom inquired. Not yet, Daisy answered, shaking her head. She closed the book but held onto it tightly, as if it were a cherished possession. Nestling into it like a teddy bear, she added, They said I probably won't hear anything for at least a day. That's okay, Mom agreed. Then the nurse chimed in. How are you feeling? Terrible, Daisy groaned. I'm exhausted. My side and stomach ache. They'll figure it out, Mom comforted. And Bruce? Daisy inquired, still avoiding my gaze. He was pronounced dead at the scene, Mom informed her. Good, Daisy stated firmly, finally showing some strength. I'm glad he's dead. Mom's expression darkened, but she remained silent, gently patting Daisy's hand and nodding in understanding. I stayed quiet while the women conversed. Hearing my ex-wife denounce Bruce eased some of the pent-up animosity, yet it couldn't erase a decade of bitterness. A nurse entered, checking Daisy's vital signs and administering medication. Time for your meds, Daisy, the nurse said, handing her a cup of pills. Daisy swallowed them with water, expressing exhaustion. Call me Daisy, she requested, showing resilience despite her weariness. I'll inform the staff, the nurse said, suggesting rest for Daisy. Mom inquired about test results, and the nurse assured they'd have news by tomorrow morning. After exchanging farewells, I noticed Daisy's longing glance as we left. I offered a faint smile before closing the door. After dropping off my mom, I returned home to tackle my weekend tasks. The following morning, we convened in Daisy's hospital room. Mom, a part-time volunteer, had arrived a couple of hours earlier. Soon after my arrival, 2 doctors entered. I was introduced to Dr. Samuels, Daisy's surgeon, and Dr. Kincaid, her oncologist. Though they tried to appear assured, their concern was palpable. What's the update? I inquired, eager for positive news. Despite their demeanor, Dr. Kincaid responded first. Miss Williams is grappling with both peritonitis and diverticulitis, which can account for some of the symptoms you've mentioned previously, Dr. Samuels elaborated. Mrs. Carpenter, he addressed my mom, taking over the report. Our scans have detected several large pockets of infection in Daisy's abdomen. Furthermore, we suspect her gallbladder is perforated and will need to be removed. How did this occur? I inquired, feeling my mom's hand tighten around mine. There are likely multiple factors, but it appears she had an underlying condition exacerbated by cancer and chemotherapy medications, Dr. Kincaid responded. What's the next step? My mom asked softly. She will eventually require surgery to eradicate the infection and repair the damage, but we'd like to allow her body more time to recover from the recent surgery she underwent. So, we'll keep her here on antibiotics for the next couple of weeks to monitor if the infection subsides. Naturally, chemotherapy will be paused during this period, Dr. Samuels explained. What are her odds? I asked, striving to maintain composure. Even the doctors exchanged glances before replying. I didn't like the gravity in their expressions. I won't sugarcoat it, Dr. Samuel began. Without surgery, her prospects are grim. Her body is currently delicately balanced. Administering high doses of antibiotics could potentially disrupt her metabolism and further weaken her, potentially even leading to a fatal outcome. Although the current antibiotic regimen seems to have halted the infection's spread and is gradually reducing it, it won't mend the damage. While there's no visible perforation in the bowel wall, she was likely on the brink of it when we intervened. Exploratory surgery, aimed at identifying unseen issues, carries significant risks at this point. Manipulating the intestines could inadvertently worsen the situation. Our goal is to cleanse the intestines of infection and mend any damage. She must be robust enough to endure surgery and chemotherapy afterward. Malnutrition has severely debilitated her, and she won't withstand chemotherapy until the infections are eradicated and her other bodily functions normalize. Peritonitis alone poses a grave threat, and coupled with cancer, he trailed off with a shrug. The surgery itself poses significant risks, Dr. Kincaid interjected. Very significant, considering the extent of infection in her abdomen and the damage to her internal organs. Her chances of survival are estimated to be between 30 and 40%. So, without surgery, my chances are slim to none? Queried Daisy solemnly. Though her eyes were wide and she appeared to be sweating, her voice remained steady. Unfortunately, that appears to be the case, confirmed Dr. Kincaid. However, once you recover from the surgery, you should be able to proceed with chemotherapy without complications. In that case, it seems we have no alternative but to proceed with the surgery, Daisy conceded weakly, sinking back onto the bed. Very well. We'll organize everything accordingly, declared Dr. Samuel. With their departure, Daisy broke into tears. Her mother embraced her, offering solace. Don't fret, Daisy. You have the finest medical team in the hospital on your side. Everything will work out, she reassured Daisy amid her sobs. I had much to contend with, and this wasn't the place for it. It was odd. Not long ago, I might have welcomed news of Daisy's demise, but now my emotions were in turmoil. I have to head out. School starts tomorrow, but I'll check in on you from time to time, I offered. Yeah, I'd appreciate that, Mike, Daisy exclaimed. Mom smiled at me. We left the room, and I walked her to her car, waving as she drove away. Over the next 2 weeks, I kept my promise, visiting Daisy several times. We discussed various topics, from my teaching and students to her failed marriage with Bruce, and our own failed marriage. We also delved into our emotions and the events that led us here. During one visit, I brought up her family. I'm curious, I began. What about? Daisy asked. What's the deal with your family? Why do they dislike you so much? Mom reached out to them, but they want nothing to do with you. Remember when I mentioned they disowned me after the lawsuit? Daisy recalled. Yes, I remember, I replied. What I didn't tell you is they knew about Bruce from the start. They agreed to keep you in the dark, and in return, Bruce promised to support them in retirement. He even offered to buy them cruise tickets. And you and your sister knew about this? I asked, feeling anger rising. Daisy looked down in shame. Yes, she whispered before meeting my gaze again. It was another betrayal, I know, and I'm deeply sorry. So your family used you and Bruce just like you used me, I observed, my tone icy. She looked miserable. I tempered my emotions. If you don't want the answer, don't ask the question. Mostly, Daisy admitted sorrowfully. Things went downhill after the lawsuit, and my family wanted nothing to do with me. That explains their treatment of me after you left, I remarked. It also sheds light on why you thought it was acceptable to use me while waiting for Bruce. Everyone seemed to have the upper hand except me, reinforcing my belief that reconciliation with Daisy was unlikely given all that had transpired. Daisy seemed to share this sentiment, showing no initiative to revive what we once had. However, as we reconciled, I glimpsed the woman I fell in love with, sparking hope. Surprisingly, my animosity towards her and Bruce lessened after his demise, although I still wished for his just punishment beyond this life. Mr. Smith granted me the day off for Daisy's surgery, arranging for a substitute teacher. At the hospital, I expressed my worries before she was wheeled into the operating room. "I've said hurtful things, and I'm sorry," I began. "I hope you can overcome this." Daisy's weak smile surprised me. "Thank you, Mike. I accept your apology." "I'm sorry for what I've done to you," she confessed. "I love you, and you've endured more than you should have." "Promise me something," she implored. "What?" I inquired. "Find someone you love no matter what," she sincerely urged. I agreed, feeling a sense of absolution. "We need to proceed to the operating room, sir," the orderly interrupted. "One moment," I requested. Spontaneously, I kissed Daisy's cheek. "You've got this," I reassured her. For a brief moment, she resembled the woman I married, prompting me to wonder if she ever truly loved me beyond my role as a provider. I rose, feeling a bit lightheaded as the orderly guided her gurney out of the room. "That was kind of you, Mike," Mom murmured softly as we followed into the operating room. After she was wheeled inside, we settled in the waiting area. Hours passed while the surgery progressed. Attempting to focus on the TV proved futile. My thoughts remained fixated on the tumultuous events of the past decade. Mom crocheted quietly while I paced, drowning myself in one cup of machine-made coffee after another, trapped in a relentless cycle of memories. 6 hours later, Dr. Samuels emerged from the operating room with a troubling expression. He motioned for us to join him in a nearby room, where he sat across from us, visibly weary. I braced for bad news, fearing he might break down in tears. Mom's grip on my hand was so tight it made my fingers ache, and I anticipated his words before he uttered them. "I'm deeply sorry, Mrs. Carpenter. Mr. Carpenter, we did everything within our power for Daisy. However, the level of infection and damage to her internal organs was too severe," he conveyed with sorrow. "Her body ceased functioning. She had signed a DNR and a form consenting to donate her body to cancer research. Despite our ethical efforts, once her heart stopped, we were unable to revive her. Please accept my condolences for your loss." Instantly, tears streamed down Mom's face, and though I felt a tear welling up in my eye, I refused to let it fall. I embraced my mother as she wept, nodding in acknowledgement to the doctor. "Thank you for all your efforts," I expressed to him. We exchanged a handshake, and I noticed a tear escaping from his eye. Once Mom had composed herself, we walked back to Daisy's room in a daze. We packed our belongings in silence, knowing words were unnecessary. In the bedside table drawer, I discovered a small envelope labeled Mike in Daisy's handwriting. I opened it and unfolded the letter inside. "Mike," the letter commenced, "you will only read this if I do not survive. Thank you for being there for me, especially in these last weeks. You owe me nothing, but you and your mother stood by me when others deserted me. I realize what I did to you a decade ago was inexcusable, and I deeply regret causing you pain. Despite everything, a part of me still loves you, and I'm sorry for the turmoil my involvement with Bruce has caused me. I understand that you will never feel the same toward me, and I respect that. My hope is that my passing will bring you peace at last. With love, Daisy." The note left me trembling, tears streaming down my face as I showed it to my mom. It unleashed a torrent of emotions we shared, crying and holding each other, the first time I'd wept since my father's passing 6 years ago. Packing Daisy's belongings, I realized a profound change within me. A decade of anger and bitterness evaporated, replaced by an unexpected calmness. Her passaway seemed to break down walls of resentment, offering me a way out of the dark maze I'd been trapped in. Strangely, her passing brought healing. After leaving the hospital in a daze, we settled Daisy's things at my mom's house, sharing a somber dinner. Later, she handed me a photo of Daisy, smiling in her mother's chair during chemotherapy, a memento to cherish. Asking about contacting Daisy's family, my mom offered to call, but I declined, recalling a previous difficult conversation. Instead, I promised to make the call once home, taking the number she provided. Calling Daisy's father, Fred, I was met with hostility, leaving me puzzled by his animosity, considering their refusal of support and retirement cruise. "I regret to inform you that your daughter Daisy passed away during surgery today," I conveyed. "I don't have a daughter named Daisy," Fred grumbled. Not anymore, I clarified. Why are you calling? Fred inquired. I just thought you might want to know, I responded. What do you want from me? Fred questioned. Are you expecting us to request her body or something? I countered. No, she donated her body to cancer research, I disclosed, barely containing my frustration. Well, at least her life served a purpose, he growled. Don't call here again. I heard him curse before terminating the call. Although I felt the urge to call back and vent my anger, I realized it would be futile. With a sigh, I dialed my principal's number and informed him of the news. I'm sorry to hear that, Mike, he sympathized. How are you holding up? I'm managing, I replied, but I'll be okay. Say, why don't you take the remainder of the week off and I'll mark it as paid parental leave. I'll arrange for substitute. Thank you, I really appreciate it, I expressed. After concluding our conversation, I retrieved a beer from the fridge. As I opened the bottle, I gazed at the photo my mom had given me. Here's to you, kid, I murmured, taking a deep sip. In June, I drove to the cemetery, always feeling uneasy among reminders of mortality. Parking under a large maple tree, I made my way to the monument. Despite its newness, it bore the name Williams, a decision I reluctantly accepted due to bureaucratic insistence. I placed a white carnation in the bronze flower tube beside the monument, reflecting on the decision to bury Daisy's ashes rather than scatter them. Bruce, on the other hand, lay in a neglected corner, marked only by a simple concrete block with a serial number. Afterward, I poured a bottle of urine on his grave, a solitary act of closure. If anyone caught me urinating on his grave, I'd have some explaining to do. After a few minutes of reflection, I bid him farewell. All my tears were shed last week at her burial, despite reaching out to Daisy's family and friends. I figured if Joe DiMaggio could honor Marilyn for 2 decades, I could lay Daisy to rest and leave her carnations. Sometimes, amidst the grayness, I felt neither sad nor happy, but like an empty blackboard waiting to be filled. Heading back to my car, I noticed 2 other mourners nearby. A woman in a neat black dress, her long blonde hair braided, and a young boy in a camouflage jacket. Approaching them, I glanced at the sign, Ryan G. Englert, Sergeant USMC. The woman looked at me with fear in her blue eyes. I'm sorry, I murmured, not wanting to intrude. Before she could respond, the boy said, I miss him so much, his eyes reflecting the same shade of blue as his mother's, his words laden with longing, perhaps seeking solace or reaching out for help. He must have been a handsome man if he resembled his father. I knelt down, pulling out a notepad and pen from my pocket, tools I used more than my phone's note function. Here, son, I said, offering them to him. Write him a note and tuck it in that crack next to the marker. He'll get it. He hugged me, took the notebook and pen, and began writing. As he did, his mother gazed at me with genuine gratitude. Suddenly, I heard 2 soft chuckles, one in each ear, a female and a male. Then the female voice whispered, keep your promise. In that moment, I sensed June would no longer be a struggle for me.